When Presbyterian Disaster Assistance is invited into a church community to accompany a pastor and a pastor's people following an act of public violence, we often think of Psalm 23 as our guide for our accompaniment and our walk alongside that congregation. But we don't start with, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." Because in the wake of a human-caused disaster, there is so much want, there is so much need, there is so much deep feeling in which the shepherding of God is simply not present. What people want following disaster is a way to be present in the valley of the shadow of death and to fear no evil. Sometimes the fear that we have in the valley of the shadow is that our expression of rage is not acceptable to God, that our questioning of the presence of God in the midst of this horror is something that will separate us so deeply from our faith that we may never find our way back. That the feelings of rage and helplessness and just the entire collapse of our sense of congregational goodness and faithfulness is a place so deep and so dark that we will never again find the light. What we want, what we need in that moment, is to understand that that is the work of faith, to walk through the valley of the shadow of death, step by step, attentively, understanding that this work of dissolution and despair is in fact the work of faith to which we have been inadvertently called because of the catastrophe that has overtaken us. To do that work with patience, with trust, and in the blindness that comes from not knowing what the next step, the next feeling, or the next moment will bring to us, is a work that requires pastoral maturity and a deep and deepening trust between that people of God and their spiritual leaders. The Psalms are amazing resources for this time because they don't always speak of the goodness of God. They don't always speak of the covenant between God who causes all things to be blessed for those who follow God's way. They speak as well of the sense that God has abandoned a covenant with us by allowing disaster and trauma to overtake us. They speak of the rage at the sense of betrayal from human to human that we deeply feel when someone walks into a school and shoots a child, when someone we have trusted and perhaps even paid to lead our children betrays that trust in the deepest and most heinous way. The Psalms speak of ugly feelings, feelings that are true, feelings that are human, feelings that belong in holy space because they are holy and true expressions of what we really feel and what we really experience. For the pastor to walk alongside a people and to model the ability to express those deep and ugly feelings of abandonment and anger and rage is an act of true and deep pastoral leadership. And the pastor who does that, who also has to attend to his or her own senses of abandonment, will want to pay particular attention to self-care, will want to reach out and make connection with someone they trust who is less affected or not affected by that event, will want to have a spiritual director or a spiritual companion who can bear witness to their sense of loss and disillusionment, even as they do the work of walking their congregation through that same experience. In the late 80s, the scholar Walter Brueggemann wrote a short commentary on the Psalms called The Message of the Psalms. And in it, he changes up the way Psalms are normally organized as Psalms of praise or Psalms of lament. And instead, he speaks about how the Psalms walk us, people of faith, through human experiencing, through the experience that we have before catastrophe happens, when we believe that that covenant we have with God and with one another and with the universe is one that is reliable and safe, a settled orientation. The Psalms walk us through what happens when, through catastrophe, that settled orientation is shattered and goes away, and talks about the importance of a season of disillusionment in which we express all those feelings of negativity and anger and rage and loss. The third movement that Brueggemann describes is a movement out of disorientation or disillusionment and into a new orientation, a stage that we call in our own work with Presbyterian Disaster Assistance the stage of wisdom. It is a place that once we have moved through the dark valley, we begin to see again the green pastures, the still waters, the table that has been spread before us in the presence of our enemies. It is not a place like before, where goodness was an assumption and an entitlement, but rather a place where goodness and mercy and the presence of God is our shepherd has been tried and strained. And the goodness that results from coming out of that dark valley is a goodness that admits that life is fragile, that peace is ephemeral, and that our belonging with God and our ability to rejoice and to be blessed by the table spread before us is something that is a gift to be appreciated in the moment.